Hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, Terry, Justin.
Good morning, all.
Morning. Good afternoon.
All right. Yeah. Terry, are you based in the US?
No, I'm just off the coast of France on a tiny little island.
Oh, island. Which island can I ask? Because I don't know many islands there. Or are you talking about UK?
No, I'm in Jersey, which is part of the Channel Islands.
Oh, Jersey.
Emil, where are you based?
I'm in Sweden.
Oh, nice.
Yep. In the southern part of Sweden.
Cool. So I think the main topic for today is to go through the white paper that we started once upon a time, and I think we want to revive.
Yeah, maybe I can give some historical information about that. I think, Justin, you weren't.
I was not here at that time.
When I think Ramin was there. I don't know if he contributed, but yeah, let me share my screen if that's okay with you, and I can quickly talk about what we did like 2 years ago. So when we first formed the SIG Interoperability, it was like beginning of 2020. Like we have been discussing like what interoperability means in continuous delivery context, and there were different ideas around what it means for different people. Like some people were talking about like having standardized approach to pipelines, like pipeline languages or pipeline as code. The others had like a bit higher perspective when it comes to interoperability, like having different tools within the CD pipeline interoperating with each other in a much better manner rather than point-to-point integration. And that gave us an idea to write a white paper to describe the problem and different takes on what interoperability means in continuous delivery context. So what you see here, they are probably from end of 2020, so 2 years old. So we simply describe what continuous integration, continuous delivery means, and then what interoperability means in continuous delivery context, and then summarize some benefits and so on, followed up by like key considerations, constraints, and concerns, like lack of common vocabulary, complex pipelines, stick to technology process, loose coupling, and so on. And we included some case studies in the white paper as well, like how people are establishing their pipelines and so on, using different continuous delivery foundation projects and so on. And unfortunately, when we attempted to release this white paper around 2021, mid-2021, the feedback we got was this wasn't a typical white paper. And that was what we were told, like, because we had like this, what interoperability means in CD context, the concerns, considerations, and some case studies there for 3 paragraphs about what people are doing. And then we've forgotten about this white paper for a while. And then I was thinking of what we should be doing next year. I remembered the white paper. And that gave me the impulse to ping you, Justin and Melissa, to see if it makes sense to refresh this white paper and perhaps simplify it to see if we can release it next year. And if you look at contributors to paper, there were like 20 people who contributed to paper, which was actually pretty good because it wasn't like 2 people writing something and pushing it as white paper. And then I took this white paper, I removed case studies because some of those case studies may be outdated now, and some of those people who contributed case studies are not working for those companies. So it would take a lot of time and effort to get those case studies updated, approved by those organizations, and it may drag this work even further. So what I did is I just created a new Google Doc and pasted everything except case study part. And now question is like, does it make sense to work on this document for a couple of weeks and attempt to release it early 2023, first quarter maybe? And that's what I want to hear your opinions around this.
Yeah, I think one question that I have is, it's been 2 years since we started the interoperability SIG, and I know things have happened, like CD events has happened. The terminology thing is, I think there's a big effort to document what that terminology is. How much interoperability stuff is still a problem? Like, will this resonate with people, I guess is the question I have.
I personally think yes, because this problem is not solved yet. Yes, we have CD events there. It has some core events described there, but CD events look at a certain concern, like maybe complex end-to-end CI/CD pipelines, but we haven't really looked into this, what we discussed, this intent-based approach to pipelines, for example. We didn't discuss that 2 years ago. That is a new that could be a new addition to this, or pipeline standardization maybe relate to this intent-based pipelines as well. So there is still some, value for this white paper. And in addition to that, I think Apple developers are joining the CD events discussions, and they weren't aware of what we have been doing with the interoperability area. So there are still our organizations out there who are not aware of what we are doing in this area. So to me personally, this makes a lot of sense. But I stop talking here and let you share what your thoughts are.
And buy it.
I totally agree as well. I mean, interoperability is important as long as there is not just one player in this CI/CD domain, and it never will be just one player, as far as I can tell at least. And whether we have solved the problem or not, I mean, well, CD events is one effort to try to solve one of these problems, but we don't even know yet if that effort will pay off and will actually be standardized and implemented in most CI/CD tools. So I think we still need to push for interoperability as being an important topic to strive for.
I think my take on this is, if I look at some parallels here, when we started the best practices work, the thing that we discovered was that actually the biggest gap in people's knowledge was in understanding why continuous delivery actually exists, and providing that piece of narrative to fill in all the conceptual pieces that go along with that. And I'm having a similar experience in helping out with the CD event stuff at the moment, which is that we've got lots of great engineering detail, but there's very little to explain why that work exists and what's important about it. So I think that this is another example of a gap where we're not properly communicating the underlying challenges that particular projects are seeking to solve. So yeah, there's definitely some value in here. I think looking at it, the document as it stands at the moment probably overlaps a bit with a number of areas where things have changed a lot in the past couple of years. So we might need to rethink the structure of the document a bit and narrow it down to be very specific on the interoperability part of the puzzle, but explaining succinctly what the challenges are in that space and where we need solutions would certainly be a valuable resource.
Sweet. All right, so the sounds like people see value in it. That's great. The next step is probably to sign up for a big pile of work, I'm guessing. Yeah, so I guess the question is, where are people with regards to like, I'm happy this exists, or I'd like to make this happen, or I feel like I'm willing to make sure this happens in terms of like level of interest or involvement? Like, do we have any volunteers to drive this thing to be done?
Well,
I'm not volunteering to drive it, but I will certainly review it, and I will try to contribute as much as I can. Not promising anything.
can we nominate others? Like
Yeah.
this was a
You
SIG
get out of it if you give me the
interoperability-
name of 2 friends who might write.
Like it would be like, again, SIG interoperability. I think we had a chat about this, Justin. SIG interop like gave birth to 2 other SIGs and indirectly 1 project, and another works in the supply chain maturity model. Like all these things, discussions happened within SIG interoperability. I think it would be great if SIG interoperability could push this. So I nominate you, Justin, as driver, and I will definitely contribute. So you won't be alone there. But if we could, as the co-chair to SIG.
Yeah, for sure. It's always nice to ask for volunteers first before I volunteer myself. Yeah, okay. That makes sense to me. I'm happy to go through the document and mark up what I think is maybe out of date or needs to be updated. I'd love help on areas that are not captured in the document but should be. If you're like, well, we're not talking at all about supply chain security because that wasn't a thing 2 years ago, or whatever. Like it would be useful to get those topics in, and then once we have what amounts to a new outline, we can crib from this document and solicit more writing. How does that sound to folks?
The thing that I'm suggesting to all the SIG teams at the moment is take the best practices stuff as the structure and the high level vocabulary. So those are your high level talking points, and then for this an area where you're specializing like this, use those to identify the beats that you need to get into your piece of work. And let's try and get better at tying all of these things together so that we're building one kind of unified view of continuous delivery, and using common definitions and common terminology everywhere that we can. Yeah. So I think there's some introductory stuff at the beginning of this draft, which you might be able to greatly simplify by just referencing back to best practices, and then that will let you make a more succinct document now that we've got that work to build on top of. And I think the thing with these is that they all need to be readable, they all need to be punchy, and we need to be getting the message across, as if someone was reading a news article or something like that. So we're only going to get a limited amount of people's attention. You have to grab them in the first 2 paragraphs to get them to read the rest of the document. And the document has got to be explaining a narrative. So there has to be a story. You almost need that hero's arc in these white papers to say, you know, here's a big challenge that you two face, and here's how our hero progresses through this journey. And it's very similar to the sort of TED Talks idea, where you need to be pitching these things in such a way that people identify with them and find value, and it draws them into then going on to digging in deeper, getting involved with the SIGs or adopting the projects and using them for themselves.
All right. Yeah, I think you just signed up to be the editor. No, I think it's good. It's a good point. It's a good point. I think it's very easy to be so dry in these white papers that it's not fun to read.
And it's actually harder for some of the more abstract things like this and CD events compared to the projects, because many of the projects have got functioning code that people are using. They understand what it does and where it fits into their world. But here we're trying to explain a new problem that's going to open up new products and new markets. And so we actually have to take people on that journey from first principles. And it's a case of having to make it much more like a pitch document than just an update on the new things in a project.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone have more to say on the document? We've taken the action item that I'm going to push the document forward. Hopefully have Melissa help. And so we'll work on it.
Yeah, my only comment or question is, again, like, hopefully we can make this time, because I have personal interest into this area as well. Like, I think I started talking about interoperability 2016, and many people are not aware of like what does even interoperability mean. So if you can raise the awareness on this, I'm not talking about CDF perspective now, it's just 6 years I've been talking about this, and there are lots of people still could, look at what is happening here and benefit from the effort. And I would be very sad if we can't, make some noise about the work we have done last couple of years. With that, could we target like Q1 next year? Like, it will be good to have some target date perhaps, so we can, come to this meeting to check where we are, and then, because we need to work with LF team as well to see if they like the second version of white paper from their perspective.
Yep. Should we pre-flight that with the LF team and be like, hey, here's the thing we're going to go write. How do you feel about that? And get feedback on the topic in general?
I can ask LF team to see if they have comments, or if they remember their previous comments, because again, everybody probably forgotten about this. I can try to find out what were their concerns a year ago to see if we can fix those things in the paper. Probably case study part was one of their concerns, because that made this a weird type of publication,
Yeah.
So removing case studies would address them partially, perhaps.
And I would suggest, taking another look at the case studies and seeing if there's anything in there that fits into the community section in best practices. Because, that's what that area was set up for, was as a place to share case studies and look at specific challenges. So clearly that could be a place to reuse these.
Yeah. Again, the tricky part, as I mentioned at the very beginning, like we don't even know like who is this deleted user. It's like very difficult to find who contributed some of them. But yeah, that could be something we can try, Terry. I think we can identify who those people were and then ask them if they would be interested to have these things part of best practices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. That was all about this topic for me.
Awesome. Does anyone else have interoperability topics they'd like to discuss? All right. Well, I suppose that's a refund of 40 minutes.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you all for your time. Have a good day.
Yeah. Nice seeing you. Bye.
Okay, bye.